The past is just a story we tell ourselves. Welcome to Primary Technology, the show about the tech news that matters. Today we have a bunch of news. Microsoft had an event announcing Copilot+PCs. We're going to talk about what that means, and is Windows back? And the Mac versus PC fight back again as well. OpenAI debacle with Scarlett Johansson, plus the Sonos Ace headphones are now official. Apple Vision Pro finally getting more immersive content, and we have a bunch of personal tech that we're going to talk about as well. This show is brought to you by you, the members who support us directly. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Robles, and joining me as always, my good friend Jason Aten. How's it going, Jason?
It's good. It's good. Yeah.
It's good. I think, we're going to have to say that as like just a transition thing. We should do something different.
I know. I feel like I don't know how to answer that question because what am I going to be like? Well, actually, it was a rough morning, Stephen. I mean, yesterday was a rough morning because we got a text message from our kids when they're on the school bus that the bus driver was telling them that they didn't have school, which seems weird because the bus driver is driving them to school. And then it followed with like the email and the message thing they send out that the school did not have internet, which meant that they also didn't have phone service, which meant that they don't want kids in the building, which doesn't seem like that makes sense. Except one, the teachers can't do anything if they don't have the internet because they can't get on the Google Classroom stuff. And two, I don't think you want to school full of high school students that know that you can't call the fire department if you decide today is a good day to set the trash cans on fire in the bathrooms. So like the elementary school students, they just canceled school. And every other student who was already at school, this was like 7:30 in the morning. They're like, we're going to do a half day. We'll bring your kids home on the bus at the end of the half day, but please come get them right now. So if you would have asked me the question yesterday, it would not have been good. But today it's good.
I was not expecting that as the intro to the show, but yeah.
I was explaining my thought process for you.
It's good. Well, most podcasts do that thing where it's just like, hey, how you doing? And I feel like, I don't know, maybe there's something different. Listeners, let us know. How should we transition that? Maybe
if you want Jason to stop talking about completely random stories that no one cares about.
You promised a 1 minute stand-up routine that one time. I never heard
But
that.
it had a tech connection. It was the internet. I figured it was the internet.
Okay.
There was no
internet. Does the school have 2 gigabits down, or do I have faster internet than the school?
Yesterday they had 0. They didn't have any up or down.
Fair enough. All right, we're going to jump into the news. I do want to say we have some amazing 5-star reviews in our Apple Podcasts, but we actually didn't have any this last week, so I can't give shout-outs. So here is the goal. We are 33 5-star reviews away from 200. And we'll have a nice round number of 200 5-star reviews. So if you have not done it yet, if you've already done it, I know there's lots of you out there that just keep doing it, but it doesn't count as like a new one. Like Apple Podcasts, it doesn't change the number. So if you have not ever given us a 5-star rating and review in Apple Podcasts, we need 33 of you this week to go there, and we'll have a long shout-out section next week in the episode for all of you who do that. So let's do that. And we're 113 subscribers away from 1,000 on our YouTube channel. So that's the ask this week. 200 5-star reviews in Apple Podcasts, 113 subscribers on YouTube. And I do want to give a shout out to a listener, because last week we were talking about Google search and we were bemoaning the loss of just the plain old blue link results, where you actually just get the results of the thing you search for. So Brad Thornborough on Mastodon actually shared this link, and we'll put it in the show notes, of course. But this is actually kind of a way to hack your Google search back. If you just want the list of blue links to be the default, there's a few options for you. And so I'll put this link in show notes. It kind of walks you through. It's different depending on the browser you use, or like if you use Chrome, there's some extensions out there. There's some updates on the bottom, like a Safari extension and things like that. So if you did want to just go back in time, like in the Wayback Machine, and get just the regular old Google search results, you can do that. And so, yeah, that's very cool. Thank you, Brad. That's fun.
That is really cool.
Yeah, I will say, as we're going to talk more about OpenAI and stuff later, but did you listen to the interview with Nilay Patel and Sundar Pichai on Decoder?
I haven't gotten through the entire thing yet, but I have started.
It's a very good interview. I'll put the link in the show notes, but he literally did Google searches and handed his phone to Sundar Pichai and made Sundar like answer questions about the search results and the AI overviews. And it was very good. So kudos. It was a good interview.
Yeah, I don't know why people sit down with him anymore, Nilay, because he does not. He asks them like the questions that everyone's wondering. Like, if I could talk to Sundar Pichai right now, what would I ask him? And good. That's what he should be doing. It's exactly
absolutely
what he should be doing, so.
He asked the good questions. So, and speaking of interviews, Microsoft had a big event. And I watched the interview with Joanna Stern and Satya Nadella. I thought it was a great kind of overview about what Microsoft announced, and so I'll put a link to this interview as well. But Microsoft had their event earlier this week. The big announcement was Copilot+PCs, which is a bit of a name. But in this interview, and then we'll put a couple articles in the show notes as well, basically Microsoft and the Snapdragon chip, that's kind of the big news from this event, is like there's a Snapdragon chip that now has an NPC, which is a neural processing unit, is going to run a bunch of AI stuff locally on these new Windows laptops, including a Surface Pro and a Surface laptop. And one of the main features is the recall feature, where this is I think there was a Mac, a third-party app that tried doing this for the Mac. I think it was called Rewind or something like that.
Yep.
But Microsoft is basically announcing recall. This is going to be available on Copilot+PCs that have this Snapdragon with the NPC part of the chip, where you can enable this, and everything you do on your Windows PC will be captured by the on-device AI. These, what you do won't be uploaded to the cloud. That's why it's an on-device AI feature. And you'll then be able to search not just your computer, but basically everything you've ever seen. And so if you saw a leather couch at some point and you forgot where you saw it, did I see it on the web? Did I see it in a social media post? Was it in an email? You'll be able to search your Copilot+PC, and it will bring up exactly, all the instances where you've seen a brown leather couch, even if it's not in text, even if it was just an image of one. The AI on your laptop will be able to decipher that image as a brown leather sofa and then feed you that image. And so that's one of the big on-device AI features that Microsoft is touting. And I think it answers the question, because you have mentioned many times on the show, what does an AI computer even mean? Because most AI is in the cloud. And this interview with Joanna Stern, Satya Nadella is kind of explaining that. So I find that interesting. Plus, we could talk about the Surface Pro and Surface Laptop in a second. But would you use a recall feature like this?
Ooh. Well, okay.
I know you had a bunch of other things you were going to say.
No, that's okay. I wrote them all down. It's fine. I have such mixed feelings about this, because this is like the holy grail of computing ability, right? Because the number of times where this happened to me yesterday, I was working on an article, and I had read a statistic, but I didn't remember where it was, and it was like a sort of a tangent. So it wasn't like I could just go through my browser history and be like, which one of these articles, because none of the article titles that you could see in my browser history were like, here's the article with that statistic, Jason. Like, but I couldn't figure it out. But so I had to open 75 pages that I had opened the day before and reread all of them to try. Whereas I could have just, I knew actually what the statistic was. I just needed the context, and I also wanted to be able to link to it. So I had to go back and find that, where I could have just typed in the number and been like, when have I seen this in an article? Right. That would be great. And yet I would never want this on my computer.
So you would not have this
I don't know,
enabled.
but it just, there's so, in light of what we just learned about the bug in iOS 17.5,
where the deleted pictures come back. Yeah.
Is this really a thing that you want to have the ability to have just imagine that, and I'm not even talking about nefarious stuff or things that some people might consider inappropriate. The number of contexts where you might be doing a thing on a computer, looking through things, searching through things that have a really useful purpose. I mean, as a writer and as somebody who is constantly looking for stories, the number of times that I'm pulling up articles that I'm like, I kind of don't want my kids to, you know what I mean? You go down these rabbit holes, and you're just like, out of context, my kids would be like, Dad, why were you reading this? What does it even? Why do you have 76 Taylor Swift articles in your history? Whatever it might be.
That's a good point. Why were you researching clogs?
Yeah.
What is happening on the weekends?
Or just all of those scenarios where you might be doing that. Do you want that accessible to someone who gets a hold of your computer? Your coworkers, I don't know, the cops, all these scenarios.
That is a big question when you think about in the workplace, because of these Copilot. I mean, I imagine many employees would love this feature and will probably force it to be enabled on many Copilot+PCs that they distribute to their workforce. But, mobile device management platforms, I'm not sure what they might use on the Windows side, but, you have Jamf and Kanji on the Mac side. If this was a feature that could be forced on or off on work machines, and then an employer can basically see everything that you have done. I'm curious. I didn't hear anything about that kind of business use case, but I'm curious if this might be something that Apple builds into WWDC, because with all these AI features, I mean, obviously we're like Apple people, but I think I would trust Apple a little more with a feature like this than maybe they would do something the way they capture the information, maybe less like just taking constant screenshots of your screen. Maybe there's a different mechanism they can use. But I also feel like this feature is only going to be useful if it was across all your devices, because sometimes I see things in a social media post on my phone. Sometimes I'm looking at a website on my Mac, maybe my iPad, and unless it is somehow accessing all of that, which would then require the cloud, which is, I understand, then the privacy security thing. But with Apple's iCloud Advanced Data Protection, and if some of that stuff can go in the cloud, I don't know. I obviously be more inclined to trust Apple with that kind of feature, but I could see how this is really useful. Even like that pendant that the third-party company was trying to launch, where it just basically recorded the audio all the time, like if you were in meetings. I could say it's useful, but it's starting to err a little bit on the creepy side. A little bit.
Yeah, and I feel like, I think I would be inclined to trust Apple more.
Sure.
And I say that as someone who has recently been locked out of their Apple ID several times. And it's so weird. And with the news of the funny thing about the whole Apple people were having their photos come back is every single headline is like, bug in iOS results in resurfaced deleted nudes. And I'm thinking, the number one thing people delete on their phone are screenshots. Come on, let's be honest, right? You screenshot a thing and you're like, I need to remember this later, and then you go and you delete it. I pulled up my deleted, like where you can go to the recently deleted, and I was like, I mean, I don't even know if these were resurfaced because it's all just screenshots of random stuff from like all over the time. But
that is true.
I would be more inclined to trust Apple. But again, my thing is not, you're creating a repository of what you thought was ephemeral and making it permanent, and you're that mental model is very, very different. But again, this is this is Spotlight on steroids. No, not even on steroids. Like, this is just like the
Deep
next level of it. Yeah,
Spotlight.
It's like quantum Spotlight computing, because the ability to not just find files on your because Spotlight has actually gotten pretty good, right?
Yeah,
you can look. I remember the time when it was like, now we can read the words in a PDF. Like, that was amazing. Right. But now it's like, what if it can just know everything, every website you visited, every image file you open? Because like, if you think about, like, if you open a bunch of photos, like most of the photos on your computer are named like DSC1705936
IMG
there's
underscore
no searchable metadata. But if you could just type into Spotlight the stuff that Google showed off, for example, when's the first time my kid was in a pool, and it can just like know all those types of things, especially or what was pull up the photo I was looking at this morning, because I don't even remember when it was or whatever it was. Those things are amazing. It's just, I have a lot of questions before I'd be like, yeah, turn that feature on.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think there is some pressure on Apple with WWDC looming, what they're going to be doing. But I don't know. I know you took some other notes. What other thoughts did you have about this whole Copilot plus PC, and is the Mac versus Windows debate? Like, I don't know if this has any bearing on that.
Okay, let's take those two things separately.
Yeah,
the first thing about the Copilot plus PC, it's a terrible name. Whatever, it's Microsoft, so that's fine. But I do think it's important, if you're just kind of getting this news if we're your first source of this news, I just want to explain this part, that basically they're creating a marketing name for a set of capabilities that a PC has to have for it to be considered a Copilot plus PC. So Dell, for example, could sell 2 XPS 13s, one of which is capable of, having the name of Copilot plus PC, and one that doesn't. And I think the reason for that is essentially I think there's two reasons. One, Microsoft is saying, we're building this stuff into Windows. In order for it to run effectively on device, it has to be capable of this stuff. That's one reason. And so they just want if you buy it, for you to be sure you're going to get a good experience when you try to do these things. And the second reason is they conveniently picked a standard that beats out the MacBook Air, which leads to the other thing that you asked about. It's like Mac versus PC back. I think it's great for Mac and PC to be like pushing each other. I don't think that the debate today is the same as it was 15 years ago, right? And because I think that most people, like, I don't actually see that many people using PCs in the wild. but I know that way more people use them. That's also true of Android devices, to be honest. If I'm at a soccer game, one of my kids at soccer games, and I just look down at all the people taking photos, it's almost all iPhones and a couple of Android devices. And yet I know that in this country it's 50-50, right? So I don't think that people are sitting there on the fence like, should I buy this Copilot+PC or should I just buy a MacBook Air? I don't think that that's the conversation people are having. But I think for Microsoft, one of Microsoft's reasons for making Surface products is to push the innovation envelope in the PC world and to challenge its partners, the OEM manufacturers, to like do better, right? I remember a story about, I think it was Nilay Patel at The Verge telling a story about how he was at an event in Panos Panay, who was formerly the head of Surface and now is at Amazon, strangely. But anyway, and he was walking around and there was all of these different Dell PCs, Asus, HP, whatever. And it's kind of like, why are you showing me all these things made by other people? And he's like, no, look at the hinge. That's my hinge. They're all using our hinge. Like they're designing all of these things and then they're trying to get them out there.
Right.
I don't think that there's a lot of people who are MacBook Air people who are going to be like, let me buy this $3,300 Dell PC instead.
Right.
I think it's interesting. I hopefully that will push Apple to, kind of step up its game. So
it was funny, Microsoft has said, they're 58% faster than the MacBook Air, which presumably one of the things that John Gruber pointed out and a bunch of people pointed out was like all these PCs have fans. And so that's a different, like that's kind of a different computer. And there was obviously no comparison to MacBook Pro. It was just faster than MacBook Air. Then also said better battery life, like 20% longer battery life than the MacBook Air. So, okay, maybe. But like you were saying, and I just looked up the statistic because I was curious. In my mind, it's always that PC and Windows is the overwhelming market share of, computer users. And I was just curious. And this is Statista, which I think is a Statista. I don't know. That it's a semi-reasonable source of information.
Yeah, no, it is. It's used all the time.
Okay, that's what I thought. So this is the last 10 years from January 2012 to September 2023. And you could definitely see the trend of Windows usage from starting at 80% over 10 years ago down to about 54%. And Mac gone from under 20 to about over 30% usage. So, that idea that quote unquote 90-something% of computer users are Windows. Like I remember hearing that statistic years ago. And maybe it's different on if you look at the enterprise side and you take servers into account or whatever. But when it comes to anecdotal, you go to a coffee shop, what do you see? It does feel like you're saying you just don't really see PCs a lot. I'll see one HP and then it's a bunch of MacBooks. And I think to your point, I saw people in some of the articles saying the Mac versus PC wars are back on or whatever. I don't know. I don't know if these features are even AI Copilot Plus, which I don't even know if a normal person is going to know that Copilot Plus means AI. I think there's kind of a weird branding thing there. But I don't think this is going to draw people to an operating system yet. I think it's still kind of the ecosystem as a whole. And as I was talking about these features, like the recall, is only really going to be useful when it's cross-device. Windows is never going to be able to do that.
Right.
Because it doesn't have a mobile platform.
Right.
And you could say it has a tablet platform, but really the phone is what's, I think, the key part of it. I don't know if it could work with Android. I doubt Google would want a Microsoft recall running on their Android device. They would want a Google one, but Google doesn't have a desktop operating system.
Right.
They have Chrome.
They have Chrome OS.
Yeah. But, I mean, again, for a majority of people, if you're not in education, you're using a Mac or a PC. And so I feel like Apple is still kind of uniquely positioned if this kind of recall and AI features cross devices are what's going to be prevalent. Apple's kind of the one player that can do it across the ecosystem. Mac, anyway.
When you put up that you're showing that article from The Verge about all the different Copilot Plus PCs that have been announced. And what I think is interesting is what they're talking about are, quote, the fastest, most intelligent Windows PCs ever built. Apple has never made the claim that the MacBook Air is the fastest Mac PC, right? You're like, well, let's take the engine. Now, what Microsoft knows is the MacBook Air period is just the best-selling laptop. I mean, I think that's actually true. It's not just a thing Apple says, right? And anecdotally, it bears out that if you go anywhere, you just see MacBook Air. We have them a half dozen of them in our house. It's just they're everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So they pick the one that's the most popular, and they're like, this one's faster. But I have a couple of Dell XPS laptops. It's heavier than a MacBook Pro, right? These are not right. MacBook Air, like competitors, the same category, right? You know what I mean? And the thing is, the MacBook Air can handle like all of the things that you want to do, and we've seen what the M4 can do, right? In the iPads. So put one of those into a MacBook Air, and you have essentially the exact same performance. And Apple says that was 38 trillion operations per second.
Yeah,
and
crazy.
Microsoft has said that the cutoff point is 40, which feels like the percent you're talking about a very small percentage difference at that point between the fastest, most intelligent Windows PCs ever built and the entry level Mac. Like
I also feel like when these companies have these events, Microsoft, Google, whatever, how much they talk about another company's product, I think is telling. Where the last time I remember Apple directly, I feel like we recently talked about this, directly mentioned a competitor product was like the iPhone launch when Steve Jobs showed like Blackberries and Palm Trios on a slide. And then at the iPad launch when it was like netbooks. It wasn't a specific netbook, it was just like netbooks. Since then we get the charts where we see like processor comparison, but not like hardware device comparisons where Apple is like, this Copilot PC or this Windows laptop is this much slower, or MacBook Air is this much faster. They compare it to their own chips, and then they do the very obscure graphs of their chip speeds. And so I just think it's interesting that it's Microsoft and Google and these companies that seem to constantly be comparing their products to other companies' products rather than just touting what it can do. But,
but didn't you love those Pixel commercials that were coming out last year where it was like the Pixel and the iPhone? I mean, that was great. Like good for Google. But the companies that decide to pick that fight are always doing so from the position of the perceived underdog. So what Microsoft is basically saying is that in this category, we know we're the underdog. Now, Microsoft can say that though, because Microsoft actually makes very good hardware. All the Surface stuff is great. That's just not their primary business. Right? They're making hardware because they know that most of the stuff that other PC makers make it just sucked. And they're like, we can't keep selling Windows and Office and whatever. I guess you can sell Office to Mac users, but like, why? They can't keep doing that if you don't make better stuff. So please make better stuff. And here's a good example of it. And it's worked. It has absolutely worked. If you look at the PC laptop designs today compared to a while back, 10 years ago, it's completely different, and a lot of that is the MacBook Air, and then Microsoft was like, you guys should do more things like the MacBook Air. Here, let's show you how to do it. So that's impressive.
Yeah. And the last thing we'll say about the Microsoft event was they announced hardware, the Surface Pro, which the Surface Pro is their device that has the detachable keyboard and is basically a tablet, laptop combination, and then the Surface Laptop, which is a straight laptop.
Yep.
The Surface Pro I find interesting. I've heard from a couple of the reviewers who are at the event that the lapability was actually pretty good on the Surface Pro, which it has the weird like kickstand out the back, but that it was a much more stable typing experience. But also what the one feature I thought was really cool was on this Surface Pro, previously, if you detached the keyboard, it was useless. It wouldn't work at all. But in this new model, they've actually put Bluetooth in the keyboard. Yep. So if you detach it from the Surface Pro, it will stay connected and you can still use the keyboard, which I find it's great because if you're at a desk and let's say you have like a mount where you want to put the Surface Pro up and then still use the keyboard that's normally attached to it as the keyboard, you can do that, which then made me think about my iPad Pro. And it's like, the Magic Keyboard, it's a little different because the Magic Keyboard has like the back and that would be weird to kind of have it on there. But it would be nice where if I put my iPad Pro like on a stand or a mount, which I do have one coming. It's hard to find stands that actually are for the new iPad Pros because the magnets are different. But I actually have one coming that's going to work with my 11-inch. It would be cool if I could put that on the stand and then not have to pair another keyboard to my iPad. Just keep using the Magic Keyboard that I already type on all the time with it. So I think that was cool. The Surface Laptop I think is less interesting. I mean, it's just a laptop, but...
the Surface laptops, just to be fair, are very, very, very good laptops. Like, if I was going to buy a PC laptop, I would buy a Surface laptop for sure. Just wanted to throw that out there. I think the Surface Pro, though, is one of the most interesting devices because it's not a great tablet. It's not a great one because Windows is not a great experience for touch or whatever. We've had that conversation before. But I do think that the Surface Pro is great. And I think the one thing we didn't really mention, I think you touched on it sort of just slightly, is that the whole point of all these is that they're now ARM based. So this is like the end of Microsoft's decade long. Well, like it's like their end of their decade long attempt to transition Windows to ARM, and it has not been very successful until now. In fact, they released a Surface Pro 10 maybe that was like based on an ARM chip, and it was terrible. Like people were like, it's the bad one. Don't buy the bad one.
It's the bad one.
Right? It was in, and now Microsoft is like all in on that, because that is how you get the power efficiency. It's how you get the better performance per watt, all those things that we hear Apple talk about all the time.
Right.
I think that the Surface Pro, like we had a kid who made it through COVID homeschool using a Surface, because it was like the device we extra had around, and he could just do Zoom calls on it all the time, and it was great. And then they'd play Minecraft on it, and it was fine. And it probably caught fire at some point, because Minecraft was brutal to that thing. But I think Microsoft, I want to give them credit. They do actually make really good hardware. Both the laptop and the Surface Pro are very good. And it's the reason that everyone wants Mac OS on the iPad.
Oh, we're not getting into that. I got too much. We got too much
to talk about.
Too much to talk about. I will say Microsoft knows how to do colors on their devices. Yeah. I'm just throwing that out there because I keep seeing so many people taking pictures of the new iPad Air in Apple stores, and they're like, "Here's the blue one, here's the lavender one," and it's like, there's no color there.
No,
that's not a color.
No, if I take the Smart Folio off of that iPad, you'd be like, it's gray.
Yeah, they're all gray.
I asked my kids, what color do you think this is? They're like, it's silver, Dad. What do you mean, what color is it? I'm like, no, this is the blue one. They're like, no, it's not.
They
lied
silver
to you. They misprinted the box. It's not the blue one.
Apple, change the ink cartridge. Let's get some colors, especially on the Pro devices. I'd like some colors now. I'm ready.
Yeah.
I wanted colored. I'm still kind of. Let me ask you that. What iPhone 15 did you buy for yourself? What color?
The titanium. Because what's the point? None of them have color. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
the blue one has some color.
I still regret not getting the natural titanium color. I think that was the best color this year. I went with the blue titanium, which, like, if you look at it in the perfect light.
These up. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those are very different.
Very different. But it's basically like this and the black. They're so similar. Like, unless you have just the perfect angle of light, like it just looks like like if you look at this, it's dark.
Yeah.
Colors. And my favorite color is green. And the one time they made a green Pro phone was the iPhone 13 Pro, but they released the green mid-cycle. So I didn't get it because I get them at the launch date. So green, Apple. Let's see a green iPhone 16.
Isn't it Jason Snell that has the theory that like the more Pro the product gets, the more boring the colors get?
Yeah. Which, I mean, the iPad Pro is the pinnacle. It's
like
light gray, dark gray.
But at least they aren't pretending like there's colors like they are with the Air. At least with the Pro, they're just like, you can have light or dark. Just pick which one you want.
That's all you get. Okay, I want to talk about OpenAI, and I'm going to try and weave this story in chronological order, and then we can...
I'm looking forward to this.
I'm going to try it. So... shortly before OpenAI's event, which was last week, where they announced GPT-4o, prior to that event, Sam Altman had a tweet. And his tweet was a single word, all lowercase, because he doesn't believe in capitalization. He just said, her. That was his tweet. Then, OpenAI had their ChatGPT-4o event, where they had the voice assistant, and they yelled at it to get more and more emotive and emotional, and it sounded a little weird. And eventually it came to be that, man, this voice sounds a lot like the movie Her, where Scarlett Johansson voiced the character Samantha in that movie. And, obviously, Sam Altman tweeted literally the word her just days before the event, so it seems a little strange. Well, as one should know, because of the Disney fiasco, Scarlett Johansson was in talks, or OpenAI at least reached out to her, asking if she would literally be the voice of ChatGPT-4o, to which she declined. Even up to days before that event with OpenAI and ChatGPT-4o, that OpenAI was reaching out to her. And she had the receipts, and there's a long statement. This representative for Scarlett Johansson actually sent the statement to The Verge, talking about last September, that Scarlett Johansson received an offer from Sam Altman, who wanted to hire me to voice the current ChatGPT 4.0 system. This is Scarlett Johansson. And how that system would be called Sky, the voice that you hear in ChatGPT 4.0, going through this statement, and she says even 2 days before the ChatGPT demo was released, Mr. Altman contacted my agent asking me to reconsider before we could connect and the system was out there. So that means she did not approve her voice to be used, and she believes that her voice was in fact trained, or some AI was trained on her voice, and that's what was in that demo, that it was Scarlett Johansson's voice trained by AI. There were many statements out there. OpenAI denied that they trained an AI on Scarlett Johansson's voice. Again, despite the fact that Sam Altman literally tweeted the word her, the movie that Scarlett Johansson stars in. And the latest update, apparently this is from the Washington Post, that a document shared that OpenAI did hire another voice actress for an AI to be trained on for that GPT 4.0 demo. So this actress must have sounded a lot like Scarlett Johansson because the voice is still very much like her voice, but that they did in fact hire someone else, which again, the timeline seems a little strange, being that 2 days before the OpenAI event, Sam Altman was still reaching out to Scarlett Johansson, and maybe it was just he wanted the name recognition. He just wanted to be able to say Scarlett Johansson's name during the event or whatever. But apparently, according to this Washington Post and statements, that there actually was another actress that OpenAI hired to train the thing. Overall, this is just very messy. Not a good look for Sam Altman or OpenAI, especially as they are trying to make a bunch of deals with big names, which we'll talk about in a second, like big deals with the Wall Street Journal and things like that. It just feels kind of gross. And they also, OpenAI has announced that they're kind of pulling back the, maybe correct not the flirtiness, but kind of the flirtiness of that ChatGPT 4.0 voice, codename Sky. They're going to dial it back a little bit, so it's not as like that.
Well, they've actually turned off the Sky voice at this time.
Right. Turned it off.
They've turned that voice. You can't use that voice. You can't flirt with it at all. Like they dialed it back so far, it's zero right now.
But not that that's what everybody's doing with it, but
that's pretty much what everybody's doing with it.
Just saying, okay.
It's just what is even the point of having what is even the point of having a voice assistant that sounds like the voice in Her if you're not just flirting with it? Like, come on, that's the connection they want you to make.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, well, we can have a deeper discussion.
Yeah, we can talk. There's more important things to talk about than that. But OpenAI's like business model seems to be someone says this would be a cool idea, and then someone else, Sam Altman, says do it, and then someone else comes along and says that was a bad idea, and then Sam Altman says pretend we didn't do it. Like
that's the business model.
That is the entire. No, I'm oversimplifying, but not by much, because all you have to do is look at Joanna Stern's interview with Mira Murati, who is the chief technology officer, asking her, when you built this Sora text to video generator, did you train it on, what did you train it on? And her answer was like publicly available data. And she says, so YouTube. And she goes, I don't know about that. How do you are the person responsible for the technology. How do you not know about the technology? Like and you could tell you could tell the calculation she's doing is, what do I have to say to not be sued? Like, seriously, that's the that's the thing that they're having. And so, of course, they're going to put out a statement that's like, well, no, of course we didn't train this on Scarlett Johansson's voice in Her, the movie that our CEO loves and adores. Like, we would never do that kind of thing. It's merely a coincidence. And I think it was Casey Newton in Platformer who's like, their excuse is basically that our CEO tripped on a trail of banana peels and like, oops. Like, that's actually like the description that he uses. And I feel like the biggest issue for this is, one, the future of large language models and generative AI entirely depends right now on whether or not these companies can just rip off the internet, right? Mm-hmm. Whether that's copyright violation or not. Like, that's the question. And, the New York Times is suing OpenAI. We're going to see some outcomes to those lawsuits. It's probably going to take a while, but maybe that question will get answered. It's funny because OpenAI has approached a bunch of publishers to make deals with them to do this kind of thing. And some of the responses have been, what are you talking about? You've already taken all of our content. What is the deal to be had here? You've already trained on it. So, like, what are we supposed to do? You're saying you'll give us some amount of money to do this. You've already done it. Like, we can't say no, right? Because
so I just want to mention it because as you're saying that, So the latest deal was that OpenAI signed a deal with News Corp, which I believe is the company behind the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, they own the Wall Street Journal at this point.
They own the Wall Street Journal. And so there's a multi-year agreement for OpenAI to access current and archived articles. This is in addition to other deals that OpenAI has already made with the Associated Press, the Financial Times, the People publisher, and Politico owner Axel Springer. And so they already made a bunch of deals. They're making more. And I think it is also important to remember that Apple is also supposedly in talks to make a deal with OpenAI to put that ChatGPT integration on the iPhone. This is what Mark Gurman at Bloomberg has been reporting, I think over the last several weeks to a couple months, is that Apple was kind of searching what AI LLM to put in its iOS 18 and future products, and it was like maybe Gemini, maybe OpenAI's ChatGPT, and it looks like OpenAI is the close one. But I cannot imagine Apple wanting to announce at WWDC a partnership with this kind of fiasco of a company that is just constantly in the news. I mean, both positively because they're still making exciting things, but a lot of negative too. Like I don't know. That seems like an odd partnership for Apple specifically, and for such a public company like OpenAI, and publicly negative.
Yeah, so, well, and Apple and OpenAI, those are hard words to say together, have in common is that their businesses are built on the necessity of trust, right? Apple has made it a huge, they talk about privacy and security. Right, we respect users' privacy and security. We believe privacy is a fundamental human right. You have to believe that they mean that and that the features that they're building won't resurface your deleted photos. Like you just have to believe that that's a thing that they care about, right? And for the most part, Apple's actions in the way that they build their software and their products, for the most part, I think supports that. There's some questionable things around like scammy apps in the App Store and that kind of stuff. Those are sort of like edge cases. But for the most part, like people generally believe it. And the reason they believe it is that Apple hasn't built, like honestly, the reason is because Apple's business model is not built on serving relevant ads, right? Because if you've ever seen the ads that Apple serves, they are not relevant. They are not good. That is not their primary business. It's very obvious that that's not what they're doing.
But they do try. The annoying part is they do try. And I actually did a video on like weird privacy things that Apple has in their settings. And you can actually see the profile that Apple has built for you in how they advertise to you. Like you can go on your iPhone into settings, security, privacy, ad preferences. And like when I go there, I see like movies, action, adventure, fantasy, disaster movies, or whatever.
Yeah,
and you could see, and it's a general profile. It's not as detailed as profiles that probably Google has on you and other advertising networks or agencies or whatever. But Apple does try. They do.
Well,
try.
But you know what mine says? You have turned off personalized ads, preventing Apple from using your information or interactions.
They
have none of that. So like, it's not an obvious setting, but they do at least give you the option of saying, if you just want the garbage ads, we'll just show you the garbage ads because you're not going to click on the ads in Apple News anyway. So what do we care? Like, it's not that big a deal. But
there's been a lot more ads in Apple News. Let me just say too, it feels like there's a lot of ads,
and they're bad.
And they're not good.
They're the worst ad product in the history of ad products, and all ad products are not great, but they are so like. I do not want to be reading the article about Caitlin Clark, in her first game in the WNBA and see the ad for the toe fungus again. It's just like, come on. What are we? That's not even an exaggeration. But I want to just finish my point, which was simply that OpenAI's business, which is essentially a business that some people legitimately believe could bring about the end of humanity, kind of depends on the idea that you trust the people making it not to be the end of humanity. And when the CEO goes out and essentially just like seems like blatantly lies about something so obvious that it does not instill confidence. And when the chief technology officer is like, I don't even know what's YouTube. Or here's the thing. When asked why they scheduled the event the day before Google, they're like, oh, we didn't even know Google I/O was this week. Like, you can't do
ridiculous.
that.
It's ridiculous.
You think that it's like they think this is just a game, and it's like, oh, we'll just do the things anyway because we're too big, we're too important, we're too powerful, we have too much money behind us, and there's too and it probably doesn't help that Microsoft has $10 billion in it. And when the board tried to fire the CEO, Satya Nadella was like, I'm sorry, you can't do that. So like they do probably have this feeling of invincibility, and that's unfortunate. because I think that what they're trying to build is really cool, but it could also potentially be really dangerous. And it would be nice if we could trust the people who are making it.
That's a good point. And you had an article, and the link will be in the show notes, about this. Sam Altman made the one mistake, which you've kind of summarized, but tell us one more time, like what your premise of this.
Well, here's the thing. This is what I was trying to say is I think it's bad if they're using intellectual property or likeness and representations without permission. I think it's worse that they're just making up stories and think we're stupid and that we'll believe. Because, clearly Sam Altman thinks that this movie is the model for what the future should be. And I have not actually watched the movie. You and I are both going to have to watch this movie soon, right?
Yes.
But my understanding is it might not be the model that the rest of us want for the future of AI in the world. And so it's kind of a weird obsession. But the real problem here, I think, is what I just said. He really has no credibility to make this kind of a denial because it's such an obvious fictional narrative that he's telling. And so, and actually the other story I wrote last week or whatever was right after their event, several members of their trust and safety team, that's not what they call it, but they're basically, it's like their alignment team, which is essentially making sure that the stuff they build won't destroy humanity. They all just left. And I think Jan Leakey Leakey, I don't know how to say his last name, so I apologize for butchering that. But basically said I reached the breaking point. The interest that I came here for, the things I believe that this was about, are just increasingly in conflict with the desire to make money from this stuff. And so he's gone.
It's unfortunate because the end product, like ChatGPT just announced, they released their Mac app. Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah.
I'm now using it all the time rather than the website. I use it in shortcuts. And the technology, like when and if they announce ChatGPT 5 in the near future, it's probably going to be amazing. I think there is this tandem. The technology is cool. And the demos that they did at the OpenAI event, with the math problem or whatever, looks super cool. There is the other hand of how useful is this in the real world to most people, which I don't think it's there yet. I think there still needs to be a bridge that says here's how you can use this in your daily life to make your life better. But it's just unfortunate that it's colored by all of this company culture that seems pretty toxic. And I am just very curious what WWDC is going to bring. If Apple, is Apple, you know it more than I do. A lot of people, there's always a lot of rumors before an Apple event Apple just changed X or Apple just cut this. And it's Apple plans more in advance than that. They're not making last-minute changes to their keynote the week before WWDC.
They've already videoed that keynote, I'm pretty sure.
Probably, which I did see some thoughts of I wonder if they're going to do a live but streamed presentation because they might change things last minute. But again, who knows? That's just all speculation. But will they actually announce a partnership, or are they just going to have they rolled their own? I mean, Mark Gurman's been reporting that there might be inking a deal with OpenAI, but that might just be as hedging because their LLM. I don't know. We'll have to see. Yeah. But WWDC is going to be a big event, I think. And
I think you're right. I think, but I don't think they're changing it based on what Google did at at I/O or what Microsoft did this week at Build or what OpenAI might or might not do with ripping off. And that's the only thing. Last thing I want to say about it is Scarlett Johansson's voice is just not recognizable because of that movie that most people have never seen. She has one of the more recognizable voices of female actresses, right?
Yes,
it's you can identify it just about anywhere. So this is not they just found some random person and was yeah, we like your voice. It's it's pretty distinctive.
And also, don't mess with her because one.
Oh yeah.
The fact is, she is the highest grossing female actress of all time.
Yep.
You can look up. That's the stat. And remember, Disney. With the whole Black Widow movie.
Disney CEO Bob Chapek basically got fired because of her. It's not an exact direct link, but he was close. We don't care about talent. Whatever, we're putting your movies on streaming and you're not, you were promised back end, but we don't really care about any of that. And he's not the CEO anymore.
No, he's not. And so if Scarlett Johansson can take on literally Disney.
Yep.
I don't know, OpenAI. Maybe don't mess with that.
Yeah, maybe you should have called Bob Chapek. See what he's doing right now.
I don't know what he's doing. Anyway, that's OpenAI. We'll be following along. We have some other news like the Sonos Ace headphones, Apple Vision Pro content, and Jason's going to talk about a unit of measurement with my name. I don't know what this means. I'm very excited to hear it. And then I think we have some personal text segment. But I want to take a moment and thank all of those who support the show directly. They're not hearing this because they actually get an ad-free version. And so you can do that directly in Apple Podcast. You can go to primarytech.fm and click bonus episodes. And not only do you get an ad-free version of the show, but you get bonus episodes every week. And even if you start supporting the show now, you get the entire back catalog of bonus episodes. I had several members actually reach out and say they actually want the video of the bonus episodes as well. So guess what? We're doing that too. And so I'm releasing the bonus video. I did it last week. I hid it in the show notes to see if anybody would find it. And sure enough, we had members who did. And so you're going to get a video version of the bonus episode. It'll be linked in the show notes of the bonus episodes. And of course, you get the audio version. And I think we're going to talk about, is Pixar dying this week? Because I have a special affinity for Pixar. We're both fans, and it's not looking good for Pixar. So I think we're going to talk about that in the bonus episode this week. We have great bonus episodes in the back catalog. So anyway, if you could, we would appreciate if you supported the show. You could do it monthly. You could do it annually. Links are all in the description. But if not, we love that you're a part of the community. And you can join the literal community at social.primarytech.fm, where there's almost 200 of us now interacting about the different episodes. Lots of fun posts. We have members creating a post on what's on our nightstand. That was a fun seeing what everybody uses on their nightstand and devices and tech and stuff. So join the social the community there, and also you can give us a 5-star rating. Remember, we're trying to get to 33 more 5-star ratings in Apple Podcasts this week, and so you can support the show that way. And we're just glad you listen and watch the show, and so we appreciate it. So thank you to those everywhere who listen and watch Primary Technology. Sonos officially, finally, after being leaked by The Verge multiple times, and basically everybody knew what it was before it was launched, officially announced the Sonos Ace headphones. This is very much taking on the high-end over-the-ear headphones a la AirPods Max. They come in 2 vibrant colors, white and black, and it is $450. Being Sonos headphones, there is some integration with, if you have a Sonos sound bar on your TV and you want to switch the audio of the movie you're watching to the headphones, you can press a button and the audio will switch to the headphones. So there's some ecosystem continuity there. They have spatial audio, active noise cancellation, Dolby Atmos, USB-C connection, unlike AirPods Max, and a 3.5 millimeter headphone connection. You get 2 connections in these headphones. This is a steal. You got an actual headphone jack and USB-C and not Lightning. Connects via Bluetooth, obviously. Works with Apple. I think you could pair it with up to 2 devices. So if you do have an iPhone, an iPad, a Mac, and an Apple TV, you're all going to have to do some switching if you go with these. But they look very nice. They gave some press, early access to try them some time ago. But there's no, actual reviews out just yet. It's just been, hands-on times. They come out June 5th. If you pre-order now, it ships June 5th, so we're a couple weeks away. But they look cool. Curious how they sound. Do these tempt you at all?
No.
You got to play.
They literally, I have no, I'll review them. I would love to just
sure,
play around with them, but I don't understand. I say this as someone who has a collection of $400-ish headphones.
Yeah.
But I don't understand. It just seems like every company is that seems like the right price point to target for this type of headphone. But I don't know why, because you could put on a pair of AKG, headphones that are just wired or whatever, and they sound great. Is it just the Bluetooth? I don't fully understand what the situation is.
It's the metal extender pole and the magnetic ear cuffs. Yeah.
But I feel and yes, the AirPods Max were nice. They're big. I feel like the AirPods Max were better than other Bluetooth over-the-ear headphones.
I think the word you're looking for is worse. Sorry, I just have to tell as a writer. You said less better. I just want
No. Let me finish my thought. I think they are less.
Shoot, I was trying to catch you.
They are less better than than their competitors, than the AirPods Pro are of other Bluetooth in-ear buds. So what I'm saying is that the gap between Bluetooth earbuds and AirPods Pro is big.
Wide
the gap between the AirPods Max and these Sony XM5s that I have sitting right here, not very
small
big.
Gap.
Not
Small
very big
gap.
at all. These, in fact, these are a lot more comfortable on a long flight. I'm just going to be real honest with you.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is the one thing that does tempt me I have a bunch of Sonos stuff in the house already, so there's that.
I have 0, so that's why I'm not buying these.
Yeah, well, that makes total sense. But comfort, these do look comfy, I will say. It looks like the headband has more padding. The AirPods Max is just like rubberized metal rods. It's like the top that lays on your head.
Yeah.
So this does look like it has more padding. The ear cups look comfortable. I had a couple friends actually get to try it out. Sonos let them wear it for a few minutes, and they are comfortable. They sound very good, obviously. Of course, they're going to sound good. I wore the AirPods Max on a flight to like a 10.5-hour flight last summer. And I will say around hour 6 or 7, AirPods Max, not so comfy. It does get a little like heavy, but also like presses.
The head clamping force. Yep.
The head clamping. Thing. It's a little too strong, and it not for me. And honestly, I mean, I don't know if I should admit this, but I don't use my AirPods Max. I don't wear them ever.
I'm so glad you said that. I have to make a note real quick.
They've sat in their Waterfield case, which is a beautiful case. Love all the Waterfield stuff. I have not taken them out maybe since. I tried to do it with the Vision Pro because I saw all these like cool people wearing AirPods Max and Apple Vision Pro. And I was like, oh, I want to try that. That probably is great. Terrible experience. Doesn't fit great. Like it doesn't go over the solo knit band. I don't know what everybody's doing with that. So I tried it for that, and then that was it. So I've used it once in the last year to try with Apple Vision Pro, and then I took it immediately off. So no, I don't use that. If there was ever, I would love for you to answer this question too. If there was ever an Apple product I would not buy again, I'm not going to say I regret buying, but that I wouldn't buy again. Knowing what I know now, going back in time, if there was an Apple product I would not have bought, it would be AirPods Max. I think it would be that. Which you probably didn't even... Did you buy them? You didn't buy them.
I did have AirPods Max. I do not have them anymore.
Okay. Did you sell them?
No, yeah, you got rid of them. I was like, this is dumb. But
so
Steven...
That's probably the one product, right? No.
Yeah, that I would not. I mean, Steven, I have 4 pairs of Bluetooth over-the-ear headphones.
Listen, you don't have to be doing these flexes all the time.
That doesn't even count all of these like other things that I have that you can put in your ear. But like, but the truth was, the only time I wear over-the-ear headphones, as opposed to in-ear like earbuds, is on long flights.
Right.
Like that's the only time, and they just were not the best for that. Like the battery lasts the least. They're the least flexible because you can't plug them in. Well, you can get that weird cord, I guess. The lightning to 3.5 millimeter or whatever. Yeah, headphone jack. Yeah. But because you were talking about the Sonos and like how miraculous that it is that they have USB-C and the headphone jack. Every other pair. Look, there's a headphone jack and there's USB-C, and I could open up all these other ones. They all have it. It's all amazing. I mean, these I could even be wearing these right now to monitor. Like I could plug them directly into my Scarlett and use them to monitor. Right? Like you can't do that with AirPods Max.
Well, and that was the thing. Yeah, AirPods Max. If the battery was dead, you could not use them as passive headphones. And that was unfortunate because I remember I had like a $75 cheap pair of Sony Bluetooth over-the-ear headphones, and that's what I actually used to podcast with because I could just plug in the headphone cable. Yep. Battery could be dead, didn't matter. They were just passive headphones. Yep. Yeah, Apple. Remains to be seen if these Sonos will do that. But anyway, they look cool. They look comfy, so that's fun.
Yeah.
Apple Vision Pro has some new content coming. Finally, some new immersive content. What If, which we talked about, I think last week or a couple of weeks ago, there's going to be a What If immersive story experience. There's a new trailer that dropped for it, and we'll put a link to that in the show notes. Again, show notes get cut off after a certain amount of characters in Apple Podcasts. So if you want all the links, you can go to primarytech.fm because the full show notes are there. But this app is coming out May 30th, they announced. So next Thursday, you'll be able to actually try this on Apple Vision Pro. But also coming out this Friday, so tomorrow, if you're listening to this when the show comes out, Parkour. It's going to be the next episode in the immersive video series in their adventure series. So the first one was that Highline video, which was very good. Like, it was one of the more impressive experiences in Apple Vision Pro. And that was going to be a parkour one, which I imagine this kind of movement would be pretty exciting. Parkour.
You're just going to be throwing up everywhere.
Just people jumping over you, maybe. I don't know. This comes out Friday, so May 24th, you'll be able to see immersive parkour. And I just say, like, these are the kind of experiences that is going to actually encourage me to put on Apple Vision Pro to, like, watch something, which, are you still using it every day?
Every day. Yep.
Every day. That's amazing. Anyway.
Until I write the article.
Yeah.
I have to
send it back.
I'm sticking with my bit. Yeah. No, I did want to say can I say something about the show notes thing real quick? And I promise it relates.
Yeah.
Because I just discovered it seems ridiculous to me that the caretaker of podcasting, which is what Apple basically is, cuts off the show notes. And I wonder, do you think it's related to the 5 gig iCloud storage? Like, they're so stingy on storage space that they won't even let you upload characters into the podcast notes.
Text. I mean, text is like...
Then you explain to me why. Tell me why.
Digit kilobytes.
Yeah, friend of the show, Zach. I'm sure he's not really. I've never met him before, but he's
a great
Zach,
guy.
Can you do something about this, please? You got some connections.
He's not on that team anymore, but I've bemoaned. There's 2 things. Well, see now we're on it. Now we're on podcast apps, Jason. Now you got me worked up. So this is what the listeners are here for. You got it. 55 minutes in. Podcast apps. Here's the deal. Okay, Apple. 2 things. 1, don't cut off my show notes, and B. 2, I did a Merlin Mann thing.
I've never seen him more angry than don't cut off my show notes.
I love podcasts. Don't cut off my show notes. B, don't take the chapters out of subscriber audio.
Yeah.
Because here's the deal. If people literally support this show directly in Apple Podcasts, $5 a month, $50 a year, to get bonus episodes and ad-free versions, the chapters are stripped out of my MP3. And Apple takes an hour to process that MP3 for subscribers, which I could have this show published a whole hour earlier.
Yeah.
If Apple just don't touch the MP3 file, just don't touch it. Just
and for that privilege, they charge us 30%. Thank you so much. It's so kind of you.
Thank you for stripping out my chapter. No, don't strip out the chapters. And no other podcast app, Spotify, Overcast, Pocket Casts, the Kindle podcast, I don't even know. No other podcast app cuts off show notes. But for some reason, Apple Podcast caps it at 4,000 characters, which it seems like an arbitrary.
I'm just saying they do have a reputation for being stingy on free storage space. That I think there's a connection there.
But the show notes are not in iCloud. They're not there.
Stephen, I understand the actual technical part of it. I'm just saying philosophically there has to be a connection, or else you explain it to me.
I don't know. The notes are in our RSS feed. It's not on Apple's. Anyway,
that's true.
Don't cut off the show notes. Also, Apple Podcasts, let me also say, since you got me started on this. So I switched
This is actually how I add show topics. I just say them out loud and get Stephen going.
You just say a word that is triggering. I went from Pocket Cast. I used Pocket Cast for years and years and years, like probably 10 years plus. And Apple Podcasts added some really cool features like transcriptions. The show art looks really cool in Apple Podcasts, and custom chapter artwork. The whole player changes to match the colors. Like, it looks really cool. So I switched to Apple Podcasts, and I largely like it. Figuring out how to manage the episodes you're currently listening to is a challenge. And so if you are watching or listening, what I do is in the library tab, of course the brightness is too bright. In the library tab of Apple Podcasts, there's a latest episode. Oh my word. There's a latest episodes part of the menu. And this latest episodes will just show you episodes that are marked as unplayed in shows that you follow. And so I use the latest episodes as kind of like my queue. Like, these are the episodes I plan to listen to, which makes sense. But here's the thing. You basically have 3 different ways to see the episodes you want to listen to. There's the latest episodes. If you go to the home tab, there's an up next queue. And this up next queue has a bunch of episodes of shows you follow and don't follow, but have maybe played a few moments of, or maybe you like added it or saved it or whatever. So that is a different queue. And then in the now playing screen, there's a continue playing section, and there's a different set of episodes here that may or may not have anything to do with anything else. And if you want to add an episode to the queue, like I just added the latest episode of Cortex to the queue, now you have both a queue and a continue playing, which is honestly an insufferable way to manage episodes that you're about to listen to.
And if you put them in the queue, they don't show up in up next.
Yes. And up next is not the queue.
Right.
Continue playing is not the queue, nor is continue playing up next, nor is up next continue playing. They're all different. So listen, all I'm saying, you don't have to hire me, Apple. Just bring me in. Just give me an hour with the podcast team. Let me ream them out. No, I'm not going to ream him out. Let me just tell him, listen, actually, all you have to do is look at how Pocket Cast handles your up next queue. Just do that.
Just buy Pocket Cast, please. Like, come on.
Do that too. They've been bought and sold like multiple times already. I think like
Aren't they owned by like WordPress? Yeah, Automatic owns them at this
Automatic
point.
owns them now.
NPR owned them at one point, I'm pretty sure.
They've changed so many hands. Apple, scoop them up. I like their app. Don't get rid of their app. But just their up next, just mimic their up next model, because then they have this amazing feature. It's what I still miss from not using Pocket Cast by default. In a show, you can set it to either add episodes to the top of my queue or the bottom. And I love that because there are some shows, my favorite shows, that if there's a new episode, I want to listen to that right away. For you, it's probably primary technology, let's be honest. But you could say, add this to the top of my queue, but shows that I want to listen to, but maybe not every episode or maybe whatever, I could say, add to the bottom of my queue. And that queue is like scripture. Like, it just doesn't change. That queue is like just rock solid. You could play other episodes. You could browse other shows and start episodes elsewhere. And whatever you are currently playing, it'll just move right into that queue, and you don't lose it. It doesn't disappear into the ether. And you can rearrange that queue easily. And there's only one queue. There's not like an up next and then a continue playing in a queue. There's just one queue, and it's just rock solid. And that's what I want for you, Apple Podcasts. It's what I want for you.
Yeah. There's only one queue, sola scriptura, right? Like, you just inspired by the Holy Spirit.
Sola podcastura. Sola podcast. Anyway, I don't even know what we were talking about. So
I don't know, but I'm really excited though that I was able to basically pull John Siracusa out of you on this particular topic.
It's a little more animated than it. Well, no, John Siracusa gets animated about Windows.
That's true.
Which is he has an insufferable system for Windows. But anyway, tell me, in our notes, you have Robles unit of measurement.
Yeah, so I have a question. I have a question for you. How many days did you use your Vision Pro before you essentially stopped using it?
Straight? How many days straight?
You can decide how many, just roughly, how many, like how long was it from the moment you took it out of the box to the moment you're like, this is a waste of $3,500?
Well.
Okay, now maybe that wasn't the decision. How many days was it before you took it out of the box to the point where you can't remember the last time you
I will say there was probably a 2-week span where I was using it all the time and trying to make video content about it, because that was like one of the main reasons why I got it, because I thought there would be big videos. Spoiler, they were not, because I guess not a lot of people care about Apple Vision Pro. But there were like the 2 weeks where I was actually doing stuff with it. And then after that, in like casual use, it was probably like, I think another 2 weeks, which is basically a month, but like another 2 weeks where I would use it multiple times a week. And then over the last 4 months, it's been like once a week.
Okay, so you can't remember when the last time you charged it, basically. So roughly a month. The Vision Pro was about a month. Yeah. Okay, so how about the Humane AI pen? It's like 3 days?
Which I will be honest, I have not charged in the last week.
Okay.
That one, I gave that one a week.
Week. Okay, how about that Rabbit R1?
Listen, that thing it makes me so angry. That thing was like 3 days.
It needs a podcast app. Then you'd feel better about it. No. Okay.
Well, they keep updating. Rabbit keeps like releasing these updates, and they tweet about it, and they email me about it. And I'm like, great, let me update and try DoorDash again. And guess what? I can't update it. No matter what I do, I keep it charged in. I shake it because that's how you get to the settings. You have to click the side button 5 times quickly to reset it. It just doesn't work. Anyway, 3 days. Okay.
Yeah. So how about the AirPods Max? And you just added this one to the thing.
I mean, AirPods Max was like, that was probably a couple months, and then I stopped using it.
Okay, so I feel like the Robles unit of measurement is probably going to be pinned to the Vision Pro. About a month is the average amount of time that you will dedicate to a new device before you're like, this is dumb, right? And so like anything less than that was probably a pretty big waste of
it's a flop
your money. Right, so the question is how are you feeling? This was all a lead up to, I want to know how you feel about your iPad Pro. I mean, that's going to last a lot longer, right? Like we're talking like 100 Robleses at least before you buy it. And you're going to stop using it only when you buy a new one, not because you're like, I don't have a use for this in my life.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm loving the iPad Pro, because I'm editing podcasts all the time on it. And, my review video did pretty well. And I think, here's the thing about the iPad Pro. I feel like either you try to use it as a general purpose computer and get frustrated, or you find the one or two things that's really the express purpose of the device, and that is what you use long term. Because I do not break it out to do general computing tasks. If I go on the patio and I want to just like do computery things, I have my MacBook Pro. When I want to edit a podcast and when I want to I don't do as much sheet music anymore, but if I was going to do that, like I reach for the iPad, no question. I'm using it every day, I'm not using for hours every day, but that is the one use case where it is worth it to me because it's a lot of what I do. It makes that workflow and experience way better, and I'm going to use that until I get another iPad.
Got it.
I will say my iPad mini, I have not charged it since I've gotten the new iPad Pro.
But you had it for like a lot of time.
Oh.
Yeah.
I had it since day one. I had it for 3 years, and I was using it as my main iPad for the last like 7 or 8 months.
Yep.
I still like it. I will say I did read an ebook on the 11-inch, the new 11-inch iPad Pro. It does get a little, like, it's heavy, and it's not as nice to read on as the iPad mini.
Yeah, that's true.
So, because I was thinking about, like, do I want to give the iPad mini away? Do I want to sell it? And I was like, I think for ebooks, again, it's like an express purpose device. It's definitely a luxury. I think I'm still going to want the iPad mini around to read because it's just way better. Okay. It's just lighter and thinner. But the iPad Pro, it's amazing. And I've watched a couple things on it just at night because I didn't want to break out the Vision Pro, like stuff like that.
So every time you get a new gadget from now on, we are going to pin it to what is the over and under on this in terms of how long will this actually be a part of your life? And I just because I think it's interesting.
I think what's interesting about that too is the one I'm most sad about is the Humane AI pin, because I was really excited to get it because it's really cool hardware. I do feel like in that first month, I was more bullish on it than most. Everybody said it was a terrible device. Yes, there's a lot of things not great about it. The battery, having to manage the battery is one of the most annoying things, and that's why I kind of stopped wearing it regularly, because I didn't know, when do I charge this thing? I don't want to think about having to keep it charged throughout the day. I'm just going to stop wearing it. And now there was the latest news earlier this week that Humane is looking to be sold. Yeah. It's looking for a buyer. Humane is trying to be bought by another company.
I think they should have done that before they released the pin.
Which then, when I feel like a product is not long for this world, the company's not going to support it, like the Rabbit R1, 3 years from now, Rabbit's probably not going to exist. I'm then very much disincentivized to try and integrate that product into my life because it's not going to be around. Right. So the Humane AI pin in the Robles unit of measurement, I think that one makes me the saddest, just because I wanted it to be more of a thing, but it's
definitely not. It's definitely not more of a thing. All right,
it's definitely not.
We're gonna revisit this from time to time. I just wanted to.
I like it. No, I like it. So we're gonna do one quick personal tech thing, and then we're gonna go to our bonus episode to talk about Pixar. But for listeners and viewers, we want to hear from you. I'm gonna start a conversation in the community, or you can add us on social media. iOS 18, iPad, visionOS 2.0, your wish list for things for WWDC, send them our way, because I think on next week's episode, or maybe the week after, we'll see. Probably next week's episode. We're going to do our wish list.
Yeah.
So we'll come and we'll bring features that we want, like a standalone iCloud passwords app. We're going to bring our features that we want. And we want to hear from you, and we want to share those on the show too. So send them in the community. I'll have a post there that you can comment on or add us on social media. So we'll do that. And our personal tech, I want to bring this up because I saw something that troubled me, Jason. Mm-hmm. Something that you posted that troubled me. Oh, and we have to do a follow-up on the Apple
I just
Pencil.
need to know how your homework went. We just have to know.
Here's the homework. I think we actually got our theme on the internet going. Everyone's talking about the Apple Pencil orientation. I posted this video yesterday. Everybody's talking about it, okay? And here's how the experiment went. Get my iPad out. I got my iPad over here.
Oh. And it's like an unboxing.
It's like an unboxing.
Without a box.
I actually have the Apple Pencil attached. It's not going to be the way you want, Jason, but here.
All right. You failed.
Here's the deal. I failed
his homework. Did you do it a week though? Did you at least try?
I did try. Here's the thing. The new Waterfield bag that I have, this is not an ad. I actually just keep my pencil in a different pocket. I don't keep the pen attached to the iPad all the time so it wasn't as like big of a thing. But the few times where I intentionally had the iPad on the desk and I'm putting the Apple Pencil, I had to concentrate and say, okay, don't do this, do this. I mean, it's fine. I get it.
All right.
I get it.
All right.
I'll try it another week.
No, you won't. Don't lie to us like that. Sam Altman, Stephen Robles Altman.
Give me another week. Give me another week. I'll try that. But for our personal text, we'll do another follow up on the pencil because it's been a big thing. I want to give the post that I did yesterday a little more time to marinate. Right. I am very troubled, Jason, by this because I saw you post a picture of your home screen.
Yeah.
You post a picture of your home screen, and I'm going to share it right here. I'll put a link to this Threads post in the show notes as well. I see your home screen here. I see the apps, which we can't even talk about. We're gonna have to. I would love to do a Cortex style like home screen.
What's wrong with the apps on my home screen?
I mean, there's nothing wrong, But the thing that troubles me the most are the badges, Jason. Okay. The badges.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. But I do want to say this. I follow the 2 home screen rule religiously, which means the apps on my front page are the ones I use every single day. So that's where the selection came from.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes
sense.
So
this was posted on Saturday. Is that right?
Yeah.
While I was sitting at a soccer game, not responding to Slack messages, not responding to Asana tasks, not doing my to-dos, and apparently not responding to messages either. That's the only reason. Literally, sure. I mean, if I pick it up right now.
And you were hotspotting. What were you hotspotting? Your Vision Pro?
Yes, at a soccer game. No, probably my iPad. I was because I was sitting in the car at this point. So it doesn't matter. But our oldest had a end of the year tournament. Played 3 games. It was hot. I was sitting in the car in the air conditioning and in between the
during
games.
the games.
No.
While your daughter was playing on
between the games, I was sitting in there. Yeah. And so, like, if I were to look at mine right now, like my phone right now, the only things I have. That's ironic that it's the Cortex State of the Hardware episode, but is I have Slack and I have things and that's my to-do list for today. So like those are the only notifications I would normally have. So,
I have no badges except for messages.
Okay.
0. I use no badges. Because here's the thing. I use things also. I have to-dos in there. I know there's to-dos. And when I'm ready to do the to-dos, I open the things app and I see the to-dos. Slack, I know I have Slack messages. If I'm working, I have Slack open and I see the messages. And if I'm not working, I don't want to see a badge. I'll check it when I want to check it. Same thing with Asana. So my badge
hygiene
routine.
Your badge hygiene
is my badge hygiene is no badges. The only one is messages because the only people that will be texting me is probably like my family, and I want to see the badges. But yeah, I don't use badges. Do you find the badges useful?
Okay, so I'm actually I'm pretty stingy about badges. Like I never have badges on for my email.
Right.
Like there'll never be a number on that because I just don't care.
Yeah, no. There's no reason.
Things only has the things that are due today, so I can quickly be reminded I need to go back in there to do these things that are. So that's the only thing that
it's a lot of to-dos.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have a long to-do list every day. Like I do, and I put basically everything in there that I can. So
yeah.
The only Slack notifications I get, I just looked at this, is I get direct messages. And then specific set of keywords, and then mentions, but only in certain channels that I'm in for different things.
Right.
So my point there is kind of like what you said about messages. You only care about messages from certain people. When I get a Slack note, if I have a badge on my thing, it's because, and if you think about it, that's the only thing I get push notifications for too, is direct messages, whatever. And if you tap on it, you don't get the badge, right? So if I've dealt with it, if I've looked at it already, the badge is gone. So that's just reminding me something came in you didn't have time to deal with, but it was urgent enough that you wanted to be notified when these things happen. So I just have the badge there for it. Right. So,
see, I have notifications for things and Slack for like what you meant. If I have a mention or a DM, things like that, but they live in the notification center and the lock screen. And I do that because then when I unlock my phone, I can quickly see what the messages are about or who it's from. Or if it's a to-do that's actually like I will have timer reminders on my things tasks. Yep. And I can just see the task there on my lock screen or my notification center. And then I can either mark it as done, dismiss it, or if it's a Slack message that I don't have to do anything with, or I do, like I could just tap into it and I go right to the app. And so I just don't do the badges.
Yeah, so I just only do them for a very specific set of things, and it just happened to be on a weekend. Yeah. I'm not doing any of those things, and so yes, some of those. So it would actually been more concerning if I had been sitting at my daughter's soccer game and there was no badges, because it would have meant that instead of watching soccer, I was actually just dealing with tasks and that kind of stuff. Fair. But no, I agree. Like philosophically, I never have badges turned on for email, and I only get push notifications for specific people. Like because other than that, like yes, I'll check my email at certain times, but in messages, if I have a message, I want to know that I got a message from someone.
Then I just want to, do you feel how I do? Because sometimes I see people post screenshots of their phone or whatever, and like the email has 43,000 and the Facebook app has like 74, and I'm like, just turn those off, just turn them off.
Also,
like obviously if you're not doing anything
if you have 43,000 on your email app, like why do you even have the email app? Because you're not using it ever.
Listen, someone in my family has over 100,000 in the badge. There's actually a ... So I try to help. I try to help people.
I'm deeply concerned. I don't
just turn off the badges. Yeah. Anyway, I understand your method. I think is a little, it's reasonable, but turn off the badges.
Yeah,
I don't think you need badges for most people. Anyway, okay, so future tech. Personal tech stuff. We're going to talk about what email apps we use, hard drive hygiene. We've got a bunch of that. So follow the show. New episodes come out every week on Thursday. And subscribe to the YouTube channel. Trying to reach 1,000 there. YouTube.com/@PrimaryTechShow. And you can support the show directly. All those links are in the show notes. We're going to go and talk about Pixar, one of my favorites. And it's making me very sad. And you can watch the video version now if you support the show. I want to get the bonus episodes on video as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week.